Hello, Virgo, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. This reading will be for Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So, by all means, if you know all three of your major placements, you can feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one of them may resonate differently for you. And as always, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature, so they're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals, which means that not everything that comes through will be for you or make sense to you. So I highly recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate, however that makes sense for you and however that might connect to your personal circumstances. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and you can simply leave the rest. So Virgo, I hope you're doing well. I hope summer is off to a great start for you all. I'm sorry about the delay. I have been trying to get these videos out, and it's just I've been chronically behind schedule, and I've also had some issues with recording and uploading. So I am here, and better late than never. So I'm very excited to take a look at what July might have in store for you. And as always, before I get into your oracle and tarot cards, I will kick off the reading by sharing with you my channeled energetic impression and channeled messages that I took some time to sit down and connect with before getting your oracle card for this month out. So we'll jump right into that. So overall, I have to say, as I was preparing for your reading and starting to connect with your energy, there was nothing really major that stood out like on one end of the spectrum or the other. It kind of just had like an overall steady, peaceful kind of feel. So it's like nothing insanely like exciting, nothing insanely negative. It's just kind of like almost like a comfortable, familiar energy. So you may or may not be in that place, but that was kind of like the impression that I got, because most of what I was picking up on was like physical in nature, and then kind of like related to the less tangible, like more spiritual side of things. So I did have some like tension or pressure in my head. So it was kind of like having congestion in your forehead, like across your forehead, in your temples, maybe even a little bit behind your eyes. And that pressure is just kind of building to the point where it's almost on the verge of a headache. Um, and it's kind of like when you start coming down with a cold, like, or you have a bad head cold, or you're just coming out of one, how that pressure can kind of linger. So it's kind of uncomfortable, and it can also make us feel a little bit fuzzy. It kind of like mutes things. Like I know for myself personally, it makes me feel bogged down. I'm less sharp in terms of like understanding things, and like even on a spiritual, on a sensitivity level, everything just kind of seems muted. And it makes sense, because if you are suffering from something like a cold or perhaps really intense allergies, that can take a lot of your energy, because your body is kind of reacting and fighting that. So we generally notice a dulling of our senses during that time. So that could be something that you're experiencing. Maybe your immune system is just a little bit run down, or you could be really pressure sensitive. So it could be like the weather, it could be wherever you are. And also, if you're female, for sure, I know it could be hormonal. So that might be something that you experience. But it just kind of came, this pressure kind of came with a bit of a fuzziness, a lack of clarity. And a sense that like you might be feeling a little bit bogged down or worn down on a physical level, and that might be translating to kind of like mental and spiritual like acuity being lessened. I didn't get the sense that it was a really major problem, but that was like just what stood out for me. And the vibe that it also kind of gave me, it was like, sometimes when drinking, it's like sometimes drinking can make you feel a little bit like alcohol can make you feel a little bit congested, and obviously it gives you that fuzzy feeling. And then sometimes if you end up hungover, those symptoms will last into the next day. So it could be from consuming alcohol, if that's something that you have been doing or that you do on a regular basis. It might just kind of be impacting you a little bit on the physical level, and maybe even like emotionally, mentally, like in terms of any sensitivities you may have. And The next thing that came through was like, I got the impression that there are a lot of messages that are kind of like trying to come through for you or waiting to come through for you. If you're somebody who has any kind of like spiritual inclination or understanding, if you believe in like, you know, passed on loved ones or ancestors or angels, spirit guides, God, the universe, whatever, you know, in terms of like us being influenced and receiving feedback and wisdom and information, I kind of get the sense that however that would make sense for you and however you might connect to those concepts, that they like, you know, it's like there's an energy that's trying to get your attention. There are messages that are trying to come through, maybe intuitively. It could also be in terms of signs and synchronicities if you're somebody who pays attention to or appreciates that kind of thing. But I kind of get the sense that it's almost like they're hitting a wall. So you're not necessarily seeing them or receiving them, or perhaps not acknowledging them or allowing them to impact you. And so I also kind of, along with this, it could just be a lack of awareness in general. Like perhaps that's just something that you're, you know, on a spiritual or sensitivity kind of level. Maybe you haven't experienced that before. Maybe you're not tuned in. Maybe that's not even something you were aware of that you could do, or that you know, could present itself to you. Or it could be that you are aware, perhaps you are more spiritual in nature, but you've been disconnected from it. Maybe just because you've been busy, or maybe you've disconnected yourself from it because you've kind of written it off as something that isn't necessarily real or true or tangible. So there might be some kind of block there that you're not able to receive the insight and the intuitive wisdom that's available to you. And it could be as a result of deciding consciously to shut yourself off to it, or perhaps trying to numb yourself to it. And I have to say, particularly if alcohol is something that resonates with you, that might be one way that you are kind of like numbing yourself and numbing your connection to your intuition, to like your highest self. Because like as much as I read cards and I enjoy reading for other people, it's like we all have our own kind of connection. We have our own intuition. We have our own inner wisdom. And I think that's the absolute most important to cultivate and to understand and to be able to flow with. But the challenging part is that you have to be kind of willing to, and you have to also create an appropriate environment. It could be externally, but also internally, to allow yourself to be open to receiving that insight or that wisdom, and then you know, trying to integrate that into your experience. So if that resonates for you, if it's something that you're interested in, I think that it wouldn't hurt for you to take some time to check in with yourself, reconnect with your guides, and you know, however you might do that. But it's kind of like there's an extra little bit of magic in life that's trying to get through to you. So I don't necessarily think anything negative would come as a result of this, but obviously you're not obligated to. So just putting that out there. Yeah, so in terms of your channeled messages, the first one that came through was the Ocarina of Time, which I am relatively unfamiliar with. I know it's a very, very popular Zelda game, like from Nintendo. So I don't know, you may have some kind of connection to that. That may be like a major theme for you. It may be something that you're really interested in, or something that you nerd out over, or perhaps like on your own or with other people. I don't know how that might play a role in your month. I really can't interpret it any more than that. So you'll know if that makes sense to you, but that was kind of a cool one. The next message that came through was grocery shopping, which I thought is such a it's such a bizarre message to come through, because it's just such a normal everyday kind of thing. So I don't know, maybe grocery shopping is something that you have enjoyed doing. Maybe it's something that you look forward to now, like in terms of meal planning and preparation, whether it's just for yourself or yourself and others. And I kind of got the sense that it's like, maybe it wasn't something that was fun, and now for some reason it is, or it's like a fun thing to do. Like, I know even for myself, I used to dislike I like grocery shopping now, but I used to dislike going on my own. And then When my husband and I like moved in together years ago, it was like so much fun going to the grocery store together and like planning our meals and stuff. So it could be something like that, but like also a sense of like maybe it was more difficult and now it's a little bit easier or maybe more accessible, and so now it's like something that you look forward to. I have no idea. Or perhaps like specifically grocery shopping and meal planning and diet is something that's really on your mind. I don't know. The next message that came through was they sold me a lemon. So the idea of like somebody selling you a lemon, and usually a lemon, like we speak to that in terms of cars. So it's like a car that's of poor quality, perhaps defective, and so it's kind of like it's always breaking down, or things on it are always breaking, and it's like it's always needing to be repaired, and it's just kind of like unreliable. And it ends up being a money pit, right? It ends up costing you way more money than just the purchase of the car and like, you know, gas and insurance and maintenance, because it's kind of like there's something inherently, you know, wrong with it. And so this doesn't have to be a car, obviously. It could be, but it's also it could be something that you've bought that was defective, perhaps not made properly, not of good quality, or perhaps you were being led to believe that you were buying something that was of quality and you got something that was actually of like a lesser value. I have no idea, but it's like, yeah. There's kind of the sense of like maybe being screwed over because you didn't necessarily get what you paid for. So I don't know how that might apply to you. Maybe if you are making big purchases, or there are things where like quality and it being like verified like good is of major importance, then it might be something to keep in mind. Like, I have no idea. And then the next message that came through was environmentalism. So it could be so obviously environmentalism is kind of being concerned about, you know, taking some kind of action to preserve the environment, to kind of like protect it or rehabilitate it, because it's recognizing, you know, that we are inherently a part of our environment. You know, the earth is something that needs to be kind of cared for and nurtured in order for us to be able to enjoy living here. So there might be a real connection to environmentalism. It might be like a specific branch or a specific concept, or more broad. It might be something that you're interested in getting involved in, or, you know, figuring out how you can do your part. It might be activism, or it could just be in the sense of like trying to live more green, live more sustainably, you know, make environmentally conscious decisions. And then also, when I Googled environmentalism, just to make sure that I wasn't missing anything, environmentalism, I guess, is also the term for people who believe that you are shaped more so by your environment than by like your hereditary like genes, I guess. So it's kind of like the nature versus nurture. So this would be for nature over, or sorry, it would be nurture over nature. So basically saying that the people that are around you, the environment that you grow up in, has more to do with shaping you and your personality than your genetics that were handed down to you, kind of thing. So that's another way that may apply. And the last thing that came through was enneagrams. And so it's something that I've heard of, and I've definitely seen it like on my social media and people who are into it, but it's something that I never actually looked into or educated myself on. So I didn't really have context when it came through, but I did a Google search, and it's another one of those personality type tests. And I guess there are 9 different personality types. They're all interconnected, and it's kind of all about like why people act the way they do, how people think, how people function and show up in the world. So it's giving us a better framework for understanding the human psyche, like our own and others, for relating to ourselves and others better. And so that could be something, perhaps like you've already taken that test, you know your Enneagram, and maybe that information is something that's going to be helpful to you. Maybe that's a theme that will come up for you. And if it's something that you don't know about or you haven't done, if you have any kind of inclination, it might be worth looking up and figuring out what your personality type is. So it's kind of just like you would take like a Myers-Briggs or whatever. It can be helpful and enlightening. Obviously, we don't want to create a really firm identity for ourselves out of those types of results, but they can be really beneficial in the way that they allow us to maybe consider more aspects of our personality or more strengths that we wouldn't necessarily have considered strengths. So it's kind of giving us a better understanding and perhaps a better level of acceptance in terms of like who we are and what makes us tick. And when we can have that understanding and appreciation for ourselves, it's a lot easier to extend that to other people as well, particularly when we realize that, you know, everyone is different. I don't think 9 personality types is enough. Everybody is different, but it's recognizing that, you know, everybody has their value and we all kind of, you know, work together. So it could be something that might interest you, or you might just have an interest in like, you know, human psychology and behavior, perhaps like analyzing people, and maybe it's important for you to have more tools to kind of understand what drives people. So your card for this month is Milk and Honey. So this is a really nice card for you guys. It's like it is a very nice kind of peaceful energy. And that might be, sorry, I'm just trying to prop this up so it doesn't take up so much space. So this might be why I was kind of sensing that just steady kind of peaceful energy. Like there's nothing, I didn't sense that there was a lot of movement or there was a lot of shifts or anything like really incredibly dynamic going on with you guys. Like I said, it just kind of felt like a comfort zone. So it could be that, like it could be that perhaps something, especially with this showing up, it's like perhaps something like a goal or something that you've been working to manifest has finally kind of come to fruition, and you're in a position where you're able to just kind of not necessarily sit back in sense of not doing anything, but really begin to enjoy the results of your work, and enjoy, you know, whatever it is that you were focused on creating for yourself. So this could be something that just kind of materialized or recently, and now you're kind of settling into this stage of life where it's like you kind of successfully manifested something that was really important to you, and you're just taking your time to connect with it and enjoy it as you should. And this could be something that just came about quickly, or it could be something that you've had in mind for a long time and you've been working really hard to get to. So is basically saying that your enjoyment, like your abundance, your ability to connect with abundance in all forms. So that could be financial, it could be in terms of love, it could be, you know, just connection, meaning, really seeing like the beauty in life. It has everything to do with you and what's most important and gratifying to you, but that's heavily supported. And it's recognizing that as much as we focus on, you know, developing a vision and taking action and, you know, working toward the manifestation, we don't talk as much about, you know, when something turns out the way we want to, or even if something unexpectedly abundant is bestowed upon us. We don't really talk too much about the relaxing, enjoyable part where we allow ourselves to just be present and experience all the good things that come along with that, and to be able to recognize our abundance and not only enjoy it, but express gratitude for it as well. And so this is a time when things could be, you know, really, really sweet, like life could be really good. And it's recognizing that, you know, because we go through cycles, we're not going to be in this energy all the time, and this energy isn't necessarily going to be supported. So when that arrives on your doorstep as a result of your hard work, it's really important for you to just allow yourself to take a step back from action and planning and thinking about the future, and really just allow yourself to enjoy what you've created. So that could manifest differently for each and every one of you. It could be a family, it could be a relationship, it could be friendships, or coming into a new community. It could be a job, it could be financial abundance, or maybe acquiring something on a material level, like finally buying that car or getting that house, right? So it could be different for every one of you, but it's about like, really recognizing that those things are meant to be enjoyed. And it's kind of like, the more that you can allow yourself to appreciate the prosperity and the abundance that you have, the easier it is to get into a place of trust. So like self-trust, but also kind of trusting the universe and trusting that things will work out for you, right? Because it's like, if you can see the benefit of your hard work and the things that you've kind of connected with and created, and you can enjoy that, then it kind of reminds you like, yeah, I did this and I deserve this. And it kind of opens the door for you to, start again and focus on that next thing that you want to manifest. But the important thing is that this is like a genuine connection to your prosperity, a genuine acknowledgement and enjoyment of it. So it's not anything to do with ego. It has nothing to do with our personal value or our worth. It's not about our status or, what other people are trying to do, what other people might think. It's making sure that, that joy and your enjoyment of all the things that are beautiful in your life, it's those things that are most meaningful to you on an authentic level. And enjoying those in an authentic way brings you more into your own authenticity. So your ego drops off, and that pressure to be a certain way or to create a certain thing drops off as well. And it just kind of further supports your ability to manifest abundance. And basically, like when we're in more alignment with our authentic selves, with our authenticity, we're allowing ourselves to genuinely enjoy our lives and to just show up as we are and trust that that's enough. Sometimes opportunities come rolling in, because when it comes to our path and our purpose and the things that are meant for us, it's really, really hard to connect with those things that are going to be most beneficial to our authentic selves if we aren't connecting to that version of ourselves or allowing that part of ourselves to be seen. So it's kind of like, yeah, it can be really counterintuitive, especially if you're somebody who's focused on the more practical side of life, especially if you're very like, planning and work oriented and goal oriented. Then just allowing yourself to kick back and enjoy the good life can feel it can feel difficult. Sometimes, we can judge ourselves for being lazy or not being productive enough, and tell ourselves things about our worth. So it's recognizing that this is a time for you to just recognize all of the beautiful things in your life, to take whatever you can from them, to experience life through the senses, to allow for deep connections. So there might be like deep friendships, lots of enjoyment in your community. It might be like a depth of connection and romance in intimate relationships. And yeah, it's just kind of taking you out of your goals and your projection into the future and bringing you more into the present moment, and hoping that you can enjoy in an authentic manner and step more into your authenticity, because it's recognizing that you are an expression of the divine, and what you are manifesting and what you're working towards, and the things that are the most gratifying and fulfilling to you in terms of your abundance, your happiness, your joy, those are unique to you. And that is part of that expression of your divine spirit. And so whatever you're creating and enjoying and manifesting, that is divine in nature, because that's kind of been channeled through you, right? And so it's recognizing that when you realize your ability to impact your environment, and you realize your ability to manifest, and you allow yourself to kind of enjoy the fruits of your labor, it kind of brings a new level of personal power. And with that level of personal power, it's even more important to be tuned into yourself and to kind of, find your true north, right? So have your method of kind of grounding yourself, focusing yourself, because it's not necessarily going to look like everyone else's. It's not necessarily going to follow the rules that society tells us to. It's not necessarily going to be what your parents had envisioned for you, or what anyone else might be trying to do. It could look very different. But that's why it's even more important that you know yourself and you're able to kind of maintain that connection and have that idea of what your authenticity means to you, what you're trying to create, and kind of have that focal point or that North Star to guide you, because you're not necessarily going to be able to rely on anyone else or any kind of structure that's already in place, because this is more about you and your purpose and your divine path. So there's nothing and no one that can kind of validate that for you. And so the other thing is recognizing that when we're able to receive abundance and see like how amazing it is when we can create and connect with that kind of joy and happiness and fulfillment, it's recognizing that, the world is full of miracles, and you can connect with those types of miracles and those surprises and that abundance at any time. And so the best thing to do is like to kind of just be open-minded and to follow your true north and to see what the unfolding of that looks like, and kind of remain connected to this abundance, right? Because you might not be in a position where this is so highly supported at all times, but this is a really good moment to kind of delve in, because that is going to also help keep you motivated and keep you focused on what's right for you, because ultimately it's following that path that's going to help you connect to more of this authentic energy of enjoyment. So it's kind of like now is the time, and this might just be like an initial taste of what you want to experience in the future. And so it's kind of like it might just be whetting your appetite for bigger and better things. And then there's also kind of like a shadow side of this card, as there are with all cards. So it could be like pleasure seeking, like looking to receive comfort through pleasurable experiences through the senses. So it could be food and drink. It could be, it could be socializing, receiving attention. It could, literally anything. It could be sex. It could be drugs. It could be, daydreaming, escapism, like it literally anything that's kind of spells out pleasure for you. And it could be developing a habit of pleasure seeking as a means to kind of perhaps numb yourself or disconnect from the parts of your life that feel perhaps uncertain or uncomfortable or challenging. And the trouble with that kind of energy is it's like, okay, sometimes it'll be an energy of celebration, and we kind of let ourselves go, and we let ourselves, celebrate and just not kind of release all of our concerns. But the thing is, that's not necessarily a sustainable kind of energy to be in. And the more that we try to numb ourselves, as time progresses, if that's a habit that develops, the more that we need to try and the more we need that hit, and the more of that we need in order to kind of block out the other things that are maybe less appealing. And so that can be just kind of chasing that cycle of pleasure, especially in like a more material sense. It can really drain us because it takes a lot of our energy and a lot of our focus, right? So instead of focusing on like what's best for us and what we're trying to create and connecting with authenticity, we're pleasure seeking. And so that's driving the decisions that we're making, and it can be draining our energy because we're not necessarily being replenished or refilled from that. In some cases, those habits end up being detrimental to our physical and mental and emotional and spiritual health. So it's being aware that if you feel that need to kind of like indulge on a regular basis, or it's like you need those hits of pleasure, that's just a sign for you that you just need a little bit more of your own love and care. So this is a time also not only for enjoying the prosperity and the abundance that you have, which comes in all forms, but it's also allowing yourself to practice self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Sometimes self-care is not like super enjoyable. Sometimes self-care is exercising, and sometimes exercising is difficult, right? Sometimes self-care is, like eating more whole foods, or consuming less processed foods, consuming less alcohol, consuming less caffeine. Like, sometimes it's stuff that isn't necessarily enjoyable, but it's stuff that's good for us, and obviously we don't want to take that to extremes and to be disordered, but it's basically saying, like, leaning into the things that are going to be healthy for you and kind of keep you at your best. This is the time for it. And the ways that you pour into yourself right now, they'll kind of be amplified. So I'm going to get your tarot cards. I've been trying to pull less cards this month because initially I was hoping to do like a mid to late month check-in for all of the signs. So I may or may not do that, but yeah, it's just taken forever, and the readings are still long. So kind of seems like there's a base level of information that comes through no matter what. So that's why you've got 2 cards. Okay, so your first card is showing up as the Knight of Wands, and your second is the Ace of Pentacles, and we have the Moon at the bottom of the deck. So I'll clarify those, and then we'll read them all as one. So we'll start by clarifying the Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands is clarified by Judgment, and Ace of Pentacles is clarified by the Page of Wands. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Seven of Pentacles. Okay, so with the Moon and the Seven of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, this is an interesting combination because the Moon is all about our emotions, our emotional experience, our subconscious, our intuition, and how those are kind of markers for what's really going on. So it's kind of like the way that you interpret the world through emotion, the role that emotion plays in your life, how you experience them, how you express them. So you can see she's kind of like drowning, right? And the fact is, there can be a lot of fear and discomfort around emotions and our emotional environment because it can make us feel vulnerable. It can make us feel overwhelmed, right? But a lot of times it's our thought about it that makes it seem like a bigger, badder thing than it is. So the Moon is all about, what's hidden and what feels dangerous, what might inspire fear or discomfort. And it can be like a fear of other people, a fear of love, a fear of connection. It can be a fear of your own emotions, like a fear of your ability to handle and balance out your emotions rather than being completely overwhelmed by them, and kind of like balancing our shadow and light. And the full moon is all about, bringing light to things that were unseen. So all of the things that would be hiding in the shadows and would otherwise be, scary or, easy to overlook or avoid, are no longer obscured, right? They're brought to light. And as much as that can be comforting in a certain way because, there's less uncertainty, there's less room for those scary things to hide, it can also be really confronting because we have to kind of acknowledge the truth of the matter, because that means that the reality of our situation, whatever is impacting us, is going to come to the surface, and we will have to figure out how to accept that, how to work through any thoughts and feelings that are associated with that, and how to kind of like integrate that and move forward in a way that feels empowering, right? So this can also be like a connection to awareness of your emotions, awareness of your intuition, and like any kind of even like spiritual, like a psychic ability. And so it could be that there's something that you've been struggling with in terms of fear, or it could be it could be like a resistance to your intuition, your emotion, what's best for you, because perhaps there's a lot under the surface, like on an emotional level. Perhaps you've been working through emotions that have been repressed or that have been difficult, and that has kind of been impacting your life and the decisions that you're making. So it could be like emotional baggage or trauma that is kind of obscuring your ability to connect with and feel empowered by your emotions, and particularly your intuition and your kind of like sensitivities, your awareness of the world around you through your emotions. And that's connected to the Seven of Pentacles, which is all about kind of seeing the tangible fruits of our labor start to come up. So it's like we've harvested and here we are with this abundant crop, right? And so it's recognizing that it's important to recognize the prosperity and the abundance that we have and the work that it's taken to get there. And it's important to take time to celebrate it and enjoy it. But also it's like you're not done yet, right? Because reaping the abundance isn't the end goal, because inevitably that changes your situation. So you might have to adapt your approach, but then also there's like closing out of the cycle, right? Because even when you think about planting a seed or planting a garden, right, you're not finished when you harvest all of your fruit and your vegetables, right? So it's like there could be things like preserving that, and then taking down all of the old plants, like clearing the land again, and then you go through like a period of winter before something can be so before the ground can be tilled and you can start again, right? So it's recognizing that you might be on a point in your journey where things are starting to come back to you and you're starting to be able to enjoy that prosperity, but it's not like your work isn't finished, right? And so you could have fears related to your career. You could have fears related to your money, your finances, your abundance, your material wealth and stability. And so it could be that being in a position where you're feeling a little bit more abundant and a little bit more stable is bringing up some of those emotions and some of those fears and insecurities and the ways that you potentially don't feel safe in a material sense. So that could be it in particular, but that's kind of like the past energy that is underlying and informing this month's progression. And your challenge is actually showing up as the Knight of Wands with Judgment. And so my initial impression of this is that either you might be doing it to yourself, or you might feel as though your experiences or your environment is not conducive to it. But it's kind of like not necessarily allowing yourself to be that, best, most authentic version of yourself, or, feeling as though there are parts of yourself that aren't safe to be expressed, or that, there might be a fear of, perhaps you feel like you have an image to maintain, or there's a certain level of whatever that people expect of you, and so you might want to pivot in a direction that makes more sense to you, or that you're really passionate about, or that excites you, but you might not feel as though you're allowed to do that. So it could be you holding back, giving yourself permission to kind of delve into whatever that is and to express it openly, or you might feel as though the people around you are not necessarily going to understand or receive it well, or perhaps like their opinion of you might change, and so it doesn't feel safe for you to venture in. So what I would say is, yeah, like you could be judging yourself really harshly. You might have like very strict expectations for yourself, and you might be artistic, and you might have like a creative outlet, and you might have a lot of passion, but you might also be boxing yourself in terms of what that can look like, how you can interact with that, how that can be expressed. And it's kind of like you might be interfering with your creative process by trying to make it too neat and tidy before you've even, done your work, right? So it's kind of like if you, for example, if you're a painter, it's like worrying too much about making a mess or mixing colors or like overthinking and potentially boxing yourself into a place where you can only allow your creative process to flow from this like very specific regimented kind of source, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, you might be interrupting the creative flow by overthinking or by limiting yourself too much because you're trying to keep everything neat and tidy. You might put a lot of pressure on yourself to be a certain way because you perceive yourself as having certain weaknesses, and you're trying to strengthen those areas, and you don't want other people to perceive those as weaknesses or to judge you. So perhaps like if you are a messy person, and maybe like that kind of like messiness or disorganization is part of your creative process, maybe that's something that you've learned to feel shame about, and so you've internalized that it's unacceptable and you try to hide it, and you don't want other people to think of you as like a messy person, but inevitably it's like you're putting pressure on yourself to tidy things up, and that is in turn impacting your creativity. So there could be something to reconcile in terms of who you are and like what makes you feel your best, what inspires you, what excites you, and what would that look like if you just allowed yourself to be that person unapologetically without fear, and not only allowed yourself to be that person and accepted yourself internally, but also just allowed that to shape your actions, your words, your behavior, your self-expression. What happens if you just express yourself fearlessly in the most authentic way possible without any kind of worry or consideration for, like what that might mean for you or how that might be received or what other people might think? Because this is all about like that inner spark, that passion, that creativity, whatever it is that drives you and that excites you and that makes you feel alive, that makes you want to keep kind of moving forward, and allowing yourself to be moved by that, allowing yourself to express that openly. And it's like, it's like dancing to the beat of your own drum, and she's not looking at anyone else, she's not concerned with anyone else, she is just fulfilling herself, she's doing her own thing, and she trusts that that is right. And the more that you step into that energy, that authenticity, that open expression, and that fearless kind of energy, the more that you see a lot of the things that you worry about aren't worth worrying about. People don't think about you as much as you think they do. People don't care about you as much as they think you do. If someone doesn't agree with you, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter, because if you are being your most authentic self, you're living your best life, you're putting it out there unapologetically, the people who are repelled by that or who don't resonate with that or who can't get behind it, those are not people that you align with. Those are not people that are meant to be, in your day-to-day. Those are not people that are meant to support you. And the best thing that you can do is allow those people to fall away, because by being yourself, by sending that signal out there, following your own path, and allowing the people that don't align to fall away, you are opening up space for the right people to come in. And the right people will continue to feed that fire, and they will have, their own fire. They'll be expressing themselves, they'll be doing their own things. And so it's kind of like, it's almost like assembling a band of wild horses, right? Especially if you're looking for community. If you are blocking your authenticity, if you're kind of like posturing, or you're working really hard to create an image or come across a certain way, or make sure that you're saying the right thing to the right person and catering to whatever it is that they expect of you, and you're kind of a different version of yourself, or perhaps you're saying things that are not necessarily authentic, that you don't feel or believe because you're trying to like win people over or keep people in your circle. It's like, it's really difficult to connect with really lovely, authentic people if you don't allow yourself to be in that energy first. And so it can feel like uncomfortable, and it can feel vulnerable to maybe step out into that energy and just express yourself as you are, all of your quirks, all of your weirdness, all of your interests, without concern for what other people think. Because as soon as most of the judgment that we experience in life is our own self-judgment being reflected back to us through the people around us. So the things that you judge yourself for, the things that you stress yourself out about, the things that you limit yourself from doing because it's like, oh no, that's too weird, or that's too out there, or that's not accepted by most people. If you stop judging yourself, you'll stop attracting people that judge you in that way, right? Because when you can unapologetically be yourself and like, this is what I like, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and that's cool with me, this is my process, then the people who absolutely can't stand it are going to be repelled, right? And the fact that they're repelled, it has nothing to do with you and your worth or your value, right? Because it's all, everyone's got their own thing, right? So yeah, that might be a major struggle for you, is just like really allowing yourself to kind of let loose and enjoy, because it's also a joyful energy. It's very charismatic, it's very energetic, it's very confident. It can be like a very charming kind of energy where you connect easily with other people, and you also can really enjoy social situations as well, like going into social situations, being yourself, being authentic, feeling confident, and allowing for true, genuine, authentic connections to be made, because you're not judging yourself, you're not putting barriers up, and you're not worrying about what other people think. And so the people who want to spend time with you are going to be people who are more in that energy, and they'll be ready to connect with you on a level that's more fulfilling, right? And so for this showing up as your challenge, or like whatever's kind of holding you back from connecting to your highest outcome, this Ace of Pentacles and Page of Wands is basically your recommended energy to kind of connect with and use in order to overcome whatever this is, however this manifests for you. And so this is about focusing on what you can build, what you can create for yourself. Right? So it's like, if you have come to a point where you've experienced abundance, maybe you've got that kind of stability at home, maybe you've got financial stability, job stability, and maybe you've seen that like, hey, my hard work does pay off. And when I know what I want to do and I follow through with it consistently, I end up in a position where, I'm able to, reap the benefits. And so it's being focused on that and figuring out like, how do you allow yourself to incorporate yourself, your authenticity, what's true for you. And that will also connect to your intuition, and incorporate more of yourself in whatever it is that you do, and however it is that you kind of connect to material abundance and prosperity. Because if you keep your eye on the prize, like your ability to manifest, your ability to take action in a tangible way and to see that result in the external world, and to experience abundance in one form or another as you work toward the fulfillment of your goals, it's like that's your power, right? And so this is all about like, what are we planting? You have an opportunity to do something new. So it could be starting something new, a new creative outlet, a new job. It could be entrepreneurial in nature. It could be a new, it's pentacles. So it's, heavily related to the material world, and our possessions, our home, our career, and our money specifically. But it could be a relationship. It could be, trying to form a new habit, maybe like being healthier, whatever it is. It's recognizing that you have the opportunity to start something, and it's something that will impact your life in a physical, tangible way, that will likely impact your external environment. And so it's kind of like, if you have to make it, so in order to plant a seed, you have to have a seed. So it's like there has to be some kind of knowledge or intention as to what you're planting, right? Because you're not going to plant a tomato seed and expect a cucumber to grow, right? So it's kind of like, whatever your intention is, whatever you're focused on is what you're planting. That's what you're inevitably going to work towards. So you might be, your end goal might be to like, to have a certain thing, but perhaps while you're starting to work toward it, your energy is focused on something else. And so what you end up manifesting might not actually be what you thought you wanted. It might be like whatever you were focusing on. Like if it's worry and if worry and fear are coming and coming from a place of lack, is influencing whatever seed you're planting or whatever you're undertaking, then it's like, it's not necessarily going to be as successful as if you're focused on what it is that you're trying to create, what you're trying to experience, right? Which would ultimately be some form of happiness and fulfillment and abundance, right? And so it's recognizing that you have this power of creation. You have this power to set the intention and to plant that seed, and you are perfectly capable of remaining focused and putting in the work, putting your head down and showing up consistently and making continual progress toward that end goal. But it's about, it's about connecting it to whatever it is that you're passionate about, right? Because it doesn't make sense just to move through the world for the sake of a material goal, or, to have a house or to have money. It's like you want to have some level of fulfillment. You want to have some level of passion and creativity. So you may or may not have like a job or a current endeavor that really allows you to connect on a creative level or have creative input. So perhaps it might be considering, like, is there something that you can do in your spare time? Is there a hobby that you can start? Is there a job or an application of your skills that might be more suitable to you having creative freedom or expression? Or are you already in a place where you can utilize that energy? It's just about giving yourself permission to kind of like step out of the box and put your own spin on things, right? So instead of packaging up things nice and neatly with a bow in the way that everybody expects it to be, maybe you can offer something different. Maybe you can offer the same thing in a different way, and that's going to be your specific niche of whatever it is that you do or whatever it is that you create, or however this energy is expressed. And it could feel unsafe because perhaps it is different or unique, and maybe it does go against the norm, or maybe there isn't anything like it. But it's recognizing, like, the Page of Wands is all about being at the beginning of a creative journey. So it's like you might have an acknowledgement of your skills or your creativity, your passion, what excites you, and you might be, letting yourself explore that more, letting yourself kind of delve into it, and maybe it kind of like dipping your toes in the water, getting started with it, recognizing that it's something that's important, but you don't necessarily have everything sorted out, and you don't necessarily have the level of experience where you've come into complete mastery of this creative energy, and the ability to kind of acknowledge when you've got a vision, and have the confidence to say, like, this vision is important and I'm gonna see it through. And so there's a lot of potential here, and that potential really truly is fueled by whatever it is that excites you, whatever it is that inspires you. So your inspiration is just asking to be tapped into, it's asking to be expressed, and it's asking to be channeled into something that's going to be tangible and perhaps even like prosperous in a very material sense, right? So maybe this whole period of you coming into abundance or coming into love and joy, just having a really lovely time where happiness and peace are supported, maybe in allowing yourself to connect to that and disconnecting. You're not wanting for anything, you're not needing for anything. It's not about, having work to do and needing to do more. This is just about kind of relaxing and allowing yourself to enjoy. Maybe that is what will allow you to kind of release the judgment, to recognize, like, what it is that you're being called to do, or what you're being called to create, or how you're being called to express yourself more authentically, and just, being willing to ditch the rest, ditch anything that's inauthentic, ditch anything that is like serving other people or concerned with what everybody else thinks. Because you might think that kind of like, I don't want to say pandering because that sounds bad, but you might think that like playing to everybody's preferences and like, building everybody up and trying to be loved and accepted by everybody, you might think that it's doing you a service by, opening up a huge amount of possibility for people that you can, collaborate with, or, become friends with, or that can join your community. But the thing is, like, that is very much true, but it's kind of like, it's not about It's not about expanding your community and having access to anyone and everyone. It's about like, you've got something to offer. You've got something unique. You've got something of value. So if anyone, like, you should, instead of trying to win people over, you should be more focused on like being your most authentic self, putting that out there, because you should be discerning about who you're working with and who you're working for and who you've got around you, right? And it should be people that kind of align with what it is that you're trying to do, because you don't, if you're living your passion and creativity, you don't want to be doing something that's soulless for somebody that you can't support or align with just for a paycheck necessarily. And, to a certain extent, we have to do that, right? We have to kind of put our survival first. But maybe you're getting to a point where, there is the opportunity for you to do something that's more aligned, and you can be a little bit pickier about who you include in your life, who you collaborate with, who you spend your time with, who cuts your paycheck, right? Whose vision you're helping to bring into reality. And so it's kind of like, you water yourself down when you try to appeal to everyone. And it might open up opportunities, but those opportunities aren't necessarily most beneficial or aligned with you, right? So it's more important that you can kind of harness this creative power and this authenticity and this unique approach that you're passionate about, and draw in people that are connected to that energy to help you see it through further, right? So yeah, this might be a really good time of reflection and just figuring out, like, how do you limit yourself? How do you judge yourself? How do you allow yourself to be judged or limited by others? How does like other people's perception of you influence the way that you show up? And is there anything that you really, feel strongly about, or you really want to connect with, that perhaps you shut yourself off from, or you don't feel safe to express openly because of fear of judgment? So yeah, this might be a good time to come into a new level of acceptance of yourself. Your first affirmation says, I am not the victim, I am the lighthouse. So it's reminding yourself that even when you have challenging experiences, even if you feel rejected or judged, or you experience loss, these are all kind of learning experiences, right? And it's all trying to kind of take you in a direction that's going to benefit your soul's growth and development. And the most important thing that you can do is recognize that you are here to connect with the light and to shine that light, right? So you're not here to be victimized. You're not here to be at the hands of life. You are here to shape your own life and to shine your light, and to allow your creativity and your inspiration to kind of light up the world around you, to bring you meaning and excitement, and to impact others in a positive way. So you don't want to be dimming that light of yours. And then to truly flourish is to release all the tension that holds me back from letting love pour through me. So yeah, this is like any tension, any judgment, any fears or thoughts that are connected to that lower vibrational energy that's keeping you from being your best self, that's keeping you from connecting with love, like love and compassion and acceptance for yourself and then for others, because it's cultivating those qualities and cultivating that appreciation for ourselves and for our authenticities that allows us to confidently shine our light, regardless of how that might be interpreted or received by others. So this reading is already really long. I'll get you one final affirmation to close everything off. And this is the Starseed Oracle. So, I just dropped a whole bunch of cards. So I'm going to have to keep shuffling. But yeah, this is the Starseed Oracle. So it's pretty spiritual in nature. It's pretty out there. It's a little bit esoteric. Some of the concepts I'm completely not familiar with. They don't necessarily resonate for me, but I really like the opportunity to be like exposed to different perspectives, new information. And it's also about like the way the message resonates for you, because some of them are more practical in nature and some of them are more obscure. So it's all about, like, I'll read it from the guidebook, but it's all about like how it makes sense to you, how that might resonate for you. And if you are more open-minded or in like a more spiritual capacity, then it might be something that could be activating for you. And if not, then it's like to try and pull the most practical kind of information out of it. So the card that you got is We the Hathors. It says deep love, mother's milk, birth as a portal. And so that's really interesting, mother's milk, and you've got land of milk and honey. I am not familiar with this card at all. So I'm just going to look it up in the book and I will read it directly for you. And we'll see how that might apply to the rest of this reading. So yeah, deep love, mother's milk, birth as a portal. Birth is a portal that ushers in new life. The Hathors are here to remind you that you're a child of the cosmic mother and you're being called to be held by her. You're being called to be held by her deep, never-ending love and embrace. This is a tender, nourishing card reminding you to receive the deep, deep love of the mother's embrace. The Hathors know the journey on earth can be rocky and lonely at times, but you're being reminded to rest more deeply in the mother's arms. This is a card of extreme potency, of femininity, of creation, and of birth. You are being called to mother yourself and others too, to surrender to your sacred femininity, to create and surrender to your own creations, to hold and to be held. You're being called to remember your place in the web of life and to realize that the cosmic mother is watching you every step of the way. You may be going through a transition right now, moving from one way of being to another. If so, you're being reminded that you're cradled in a sacred container, that you're more held than you can possibly imagine, and you have access to more love than your heart can bear. If you're struggling in any way, you're being reassured that things will work out. Open yourself to receiving the overflowing love of the cosmic mother, flooding toward you from every direction. Let it stretch your heart. And then there's an activation which says, place the card on the portal of your heart and whisper the following: I allow the deep love of the cosmic mother to wash over me. I am loved. I am held. Yeah, and so I think that goes really nicely, not only in terms of the concept of like mother, that divine feminine, that creative energy in terms of like whatever it is that's longing to be created, whatever that outlet might look like for you in terms of how your passion takes shape in the world around you, and your ability to create. But I think also the love aspect of it, the love, the enjoyment, the support, the safety, and the security, right? So this is kind of a safe place, right? The land of milk and honey. It's like you're being cared for, you're being nurtured, and you can just allow yourself to benefit from it. And so I think especially if confidence, self-assuredness, self-image, that kind of stuff is majorly important to you. If you have a tendency to judge yourself really harshly on all of those levels, or to fear judgment, that's where this kind of divine feminine mother energy also comes in, is that it's kind of like you think about the way that our mother would treat us. And I can't say this across the board because some of us have challenging experiences with mothers, or perhaps no mothers. There might be like a mother wound, which this could also connect to that. But it's basically saying like, so sometimes we have people who can mother us, sometimes we have to mother and nurture ourselves. And so it's recognizing that those fears, the way that you judge yourself, the way that you might dim your shine, or kind of deny your authenticity, it's like, how would a mother treat you, right? The mother is unconditionally loving and accepting, and they try to kind of nurture you in such a way that you can see your divinity, you can see your importance, and you can learn to accept yourself as you know, and to love yourself as your mother would love you, right? And so I think that it's probably a really important part of healing, and especially if you have connection to a mother figure, especially if on a spiritual level you have connection to you know, the divine feminine, whether you know however that makes sense to you, goddesses, ancestors, that kind of stuff. It might be also calling on them to help you along your healing path, and coming into greater acceptance of yourself and your creativity, your authenticity. But yeah, I think that's really, your readings are always like really, really intensely creatively charged. something I really enjoy. So I think that was a great reading. I am going to leave that there for you, Virgo. If you enjoy my readings, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube and leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that might enjoy my readings, you can feel free to share my content with them. And make sure you head on over to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot and check out my other videos. And make sure not only that you're subscribed to my channel, but also signed up for notifications, because that will keep you up to date on new readings as they're posted. So Virgo, it's been an absolute pleasure reading for you. I really love this energy for you. I hope July is wonderful to you, and this has got me really excited to see what next month might have in store. So very much looking forward to reading for you again, but in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.